everybody, and welcome to the Friday Night Drive Western Suburbs podcast. I'm Josh Welge. I'm here with Joel Boenitz. Joel, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, coming off of the first week of the playoffs where, kind of saw a lot of everything across all eight of the classes, I'm doing pretty well overall.
Yeah, a lot of good football last weekend, and a lot of our teams had a lot of success in the Western Suburbs. We'll talk about that and kind of look ahead to this coming weekend's top matchups. Got to start with, we have some of our top conferences. I thought they're going to be doing well in the playoffs based upon past success in this season, and they didn't disappoint. I did some quick math, Joel. The Duquesne Conference, the West Suburban Silver, and then our sort of Western suburb local contingents of the CCL, ESCC, they went up a combined 12-1 last weekend, and the only loss was York to another West Suburban Silver team, Lions Township. So quite a really good weekend from those teams. Not surprising from those leagues.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, pretty much all season we've been talking about how good each of these conferences are just in general, and they proved that this time around. I mean, going 12-1 to start off the playoffs across all three of those conferences, that's a pretty good showing to start off the playoffs.
Yeah, it really is. And again, the one matchup that, they could not win, but they cannot have the winner on both sides. That Lions York game, I kind of knew that was going to be one of the better first round matchups based upon their previous game. They had also played in week 9, which kind of a unique situation there. We had a couple of those situations. The other one was that Mount Carmel Loyola rematch. But Lions York again came down to the last second, really, and a field goal by Rylan Avons for Lions, getting them a 24-21 win. And it was a game that was back and forth. York led early, then Lions got within 1, and then York took the lead. Then Lions tied, and then Lions got a interception that stopped the York drive, and then they drive down the field and they get the win. And I tell you what, Lions is a team that, they graduated a lot from last year, and I still thought they'd be good this year. But then I feel like when they took that loss to Hinsdale Central, and there's no shame in that loss, but I thought when they lost that game, then they lost to Glenbard West, I kind of feel like I made maybe a snap judgment on them. Like, maybe they're not quite what they were. Maybe they're not going to be a team that's going to be a threat to make a deep run. I feel like I underestimate them. Let's put it that way, because they've now gone win over Downers Grove North, win over York in 3 consecutive weeks.
Yeah, there's been kind of, just kind of an up and down with Lions this year. They started the year, of course, with that win against Joliet Catholic. They had that close contest against Mortonville South, and we're like, yeah, this is going to be a pretty good team. And then, of course, you mentioned those 2 back-to-back losses to Hinsdale Central and Glenbard West, and we're like, okay, maybe we were a little bit too much, but they've proven in this second half that they're just as good as they were last year when they went 9-0 to end the regular season. And you talk about, of course, the 3 straight wins against Downers Grove North team, and then the 2 York wins back to back. This could definitely be, a very similar scenario to last year where they can make a deep run. And of course, we've mentioned it, West Suburban Silver Conference, definitely one of the tougher conferences in this Western Suburbs area. And playing those games and playing those tight games against Hinsdale Central and Glenbard West, even if they did end up as losses, those could prove to be very vital as they go on this run here.
Yeah, I mean, they've played tight games all year long, starting with that game against Wheaton Warrenville South. Then they go on the road. They beat Joliet Catholic. They play a number of close games in the conference. Some of them wins, some of them losses. But I think definitely prepared them for the playoffs. And now they got a tough game this week against Frem. But if they were able to win that game, that'd be their 3rd quarterfinal in 4 seasons. So that's doing pretty good. And they got some young talent too. I mean, EJ Kuhlman, their running back, he's a junior. He's had some huge games of late. He ran for 150 yards last week. The week before that, he ran for 264 yards. Grant Smith, 6'6", tight end, wide receiver type. He's become one of their top targets offensively. So, they do have some young guys, but man, they've really had a lot of success, and really hats off to them. It's really been a great late season run for Lions. Another team that, maybe not, I don't want to say under the radar, but they play in such a tough league. They get overshadowed by the teams that were at the top of that league. But a team I got to see last week at Yorkville was Glenbard North. And man, they really impressed, Joel. I mean, it was a 17-0 final, and it was every bit that. I mean, they really dominated. I thought physically they were able to run the ball like they do all the time with Donato Gatsis, 179 yards and a couple touchdowns. But man, their defense was really tough. I mean, they did not let Yorkville get anything going with the running game. They intercepted a couple passes. They just dominated. I mean, Tyler Vorsik's a really impressive player. The Duquesne Conference Defensive Player of the Year, I believe. And just a really strong showing from Glenbard North. And what a story. I mean, they were 0-9 2 years ago. Then they started last year with 2 wins, but then they lost their last 7 games. And now they've really bounced back strong, go 6-3 during the regular season. And now they're in the second round of the playoffs. And man, I like their chances this week against Moline. I know Moline's a really good team, but Moline got to make the trip out here to Carroll Stream. I really like Glenbard North's chances to get to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, we touched on them obviously after their win against Bennett, and we've touched on them periodically throughout the season, just kind of the story that they've had to get to this point. And we've touched, of course, about how impressive Donato Gatsis has been the entire season. But you mentioned it, the defense has also been really good. And I think this once again shows how tough of a league the Duquesne Conference is, because the past 2 years, they went 0-14 in conference play. They did not have a lot of good success. I mean, their closest game was that Week 9 loss to Batavia last year, where they lost 36-35 on a 2-point conversion. And they've proven this year that those guys who have kind of gone through this turmoil over these past couple of years, they're ready to go, and they fully proved it against the Yorkville team that has been very impressive throughout the season, and at one point was projected to be a 1 seed in Class 7A.
Yeah, no, I mean that defense was really impressive, and Tyler Vorsik, I got to talk to him after the game, and he was one of 5 sophomores that was brought up 2 years ago that experienced that 0-9 season, and then that 2-7, and now he's led them back, and really a great turnaround for that program. It's funny, I kind of looked at their records through the years, and they've actually had 2 0-9 seasons in the last decade, but they've been able to bounce back from both of them. I mean, they made the quarterfinals in 2021, just 3 years after that winless season, and now they're doing it again. I mean, talk about a sort of a kind of an up and down situation for a program that's traditionally very strong.
Yeah, and I've kind of worked on these conference previews with Glenbard North the past couple of years, and I've noticed that trend as well. It seems like, since Ryan Wilkins has taken over, it's been a 1 year they'll make it, 1 year they won't, 2 years they'll make it, 1 year they won't, and it's just kind of a back and forth thing with this team. But whenever they do make the playoffs, they make sure to make the most of their opportunity, and surely they're doing that this year as well.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You mentioned Duquesne Conference, and you got to see Batavia last Friday, and boy, they sure look like a team that's ready for a deep run.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like that in the first quarter. They were only leading 7-0.
Yeah.
And then they pulled off five turnovers. And, I know we obviously focus on the defense a good majority of the season with Batavia, especially with all of the experience they have coming back. But, man, that defense was looking pretty stellar from the second quarter on. I mean, 5 turnovers, 2 of those were scoop and scores by their linebacker core, which has really impressed me throughout this season. Led by Tony Minich and Nick Jancy. Funny story from Nick Jancy, though, who had one of those scoop and scores. All 4 of the Jancy brothers who have gone through the Batavia program have now scored a touchdown for them. So that's kind of an impressive run from the Jancy brothers there. at Batavia, but it was just a very impressive showing. And you mentioned it; they're looking like they're going to make a deep run. They obviously have a tough test in the second round this week against Glenbard East, which we'll of course talk about later. But definitely a great way to start off the playoffs for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, definitely that. And man, Nick Jansen, he was probably like, man, I really got to get in that end zone. I mean, the way that, with the older brother. So he was probably kind of like, I need to get some touches, get an opportunity to get in because a lot of family stuff going on here. And it's funny to hear that because I think of the Jansies, I kind of think more defense. Than, getting in the end zone, but good for him and a good win for Batavia. Joe, one of the games last week that I thought was going to be one of the better games of the first round, and it kind of turned out to be, was that St. Francis Morgan Park game. St. Francis going on the road to Gately Stadium, able to get a come from behind 35-28 win. And really, the one thing I like about St. Francis is they got playmakers. I mean, especially their receivers and Zach Washington, kid going to Michigan State. He had the big play of the game there. He had the 81-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. They kind of gave him a boost because they were really in a dogfight with Morgan Park, who was leading at the half. Nasir Rankin, the Illinois recruit from Morgan Park, he had a couple touchdowns, but St. Francis gets the turnaround. No surprise that Zach Washington was a big part. But again, I also thought too, Tivius Caldwell, everybody knows about the receivers. Don't sleep on that kid. He's a really good running back, hard runner, physical, and he had a big game for them last week, and he's going to probably need to have another big game this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, obviously we've talked about how good that wide receiver core is pretty much all season, but Tivius Caldwell stepped up to the occasion. I believe he had 142 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, including the one tie game with 10:51 left. But also on top of that, the defense kind of stepped up when it really needed to. I mean, that second half kind of held them scoreless the entire way. Back-to-back interceptions, on the final 2 offensive drives from Morgan Park. I mean, it was fully a team effort from St. Francis in that game. And you mentioned it. They've got a tough test this upcoming week, and they're going to need another one if they want to pull off a win there.
Yeah, no doubt. But back to Tivius Caldwell briefly. I mean, I saw them against IC Catholic, and they threw the ball a ton against IC Catholic. Understandably, they have great wide receivers with Zach Washington and Dario Milwajevic and Tanner Glock. But I kind of left that game thinking, man, they need to get Tivius Caldwell the ball more because he's a really good running back, and you want to establish that running game. But obviously, a huge game for them last week against Morgan Park. Joel, I think we're going to take a quick break here from our word from our sponsors. Got a lot to talk about for this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Britton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
Back here on Friday Night Drive, Western Suburbs podcast, we look ahead to the second round of the playoffs this weekend. And Joel, a game that you're going to be at on Saturday night in St. Charles North. It might be the best second round game anywhere, with St. Charles North hosting Is it Carmel or Carmel? I always get it wrong. I'll just say Carmel. I know they had Trey Taylor. That's the bottom line. One of the best quarterbacks in the state going to Nebraska. I tell you what, St. Charles North has been playing great. They obviously shared the conference. JT Padron's been really good. Keaton Renke, Stanford recruit at wide receiver. Their defense is very good. Man, this is quite a second round test, though, because Carmel has been as hot as any team going. I mean, they routed Loyola, I believe, in week 8. They beat Fenwick. They almost beat Montini in a game that had about 1,000 total yards passing, I believe. Boy, what a game! What do you make of that game? I'm going to be following that game for sure on Twitter.
I just fully expect it to be an absolute blast. I'm fully expecting that. I mean, St. Charles North has had a couple of games like this where it's been expected to be a high scoring contest, and they've come out on top multiple times in those. I mean, look week 5 when they beat Batavia 43-42. Even look back to Minooka when they week 1 when they beat Minooka 36-35. I fully expect this to be an absolute blast to watch the entire way. You talked about Trey Taylor. He has 36 touchdowns so far this year. He's thrown for, I believe, 3,300 yards. He's rushed for 500 yards. That offense has just been so good, especially these past couple of weeks. And it's going to take everything for St. Charles North to try to pull off this win. And I'm excited to see the entire way through. You did mention Keaton Renke. He did miss last week with an illness. He should be back for this game. I think St. Charles North is going to need everything to go right for them, and I'm excited to see how this goes the entire way.
Yeah, the fun thing about St. Charles North is it seems like when they play really good games and really high-profile games, there's usually a lot of offense in those games. I mean, you don't get too many 6-3 games. I know they beat Geneva 10-7, but you don't get too many 6-3 games. So, man, it's just kind of back and forth. I expect it to be that way on Saturday night, but man, what a great test and what a great environment that's going to be on Saturday night.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people there, and if not, there's going to be a lot of people watching it from pretty much anywhere in the state. So, especially a lot of potentially Brother Rice people watching this game. So,
oh yeah, I mean the winner of that, in all likelihood, Brother Rice plays Jacobs. Brother Rice is probably that pretty good favorite in that game. That's a really difficult side of that 7A bracket because you got St. North there, you got Carmel, you have Brother Rice, you got Downers North and Glenbard West, and that side of the bracket, just a lot of great teams. But yeah, it should be a fun one Saturday night. Game that I'm going to be at Saturday afternoon, another good one in the 7A bracket at Duchamp Field. Downers go north playing at Glenbard West. It's a rematch of a regular season game that Glenbard West, to be honest, they really dominated that game. It was over pretty early. They forced a few turnovers that able to get a short field on, and they won handily. Big caveat is Minnesota recruit Downers Grove North senior quarterback Owen Lanzu did not play in that game. He had that broken left arm, non-throwing arm. He has since returned. He's played in 4 games now since that time. So I guess that's kind of the big question is how big of a difference does having their starting quarterback make? I think it makes a lot of difference offensively, but is that Downers Grove North defense, which is missing Aiden Selecki, who I believe is probably out for the season with a knee injury, can they slow down that Glenbard North offense, which is so explosive? They have so many talented players, Jamarcus Kelly, AJ Rayford, a lot of speed offensively. How can Downers Grove North defense do? I think having Owen Lanzu back will help, but it's just a matter of how much does that help close the gap, because it seemed to be pretty sizable based upon that first meeting.
Yeah, I agree. And if I remember correctly, that was also the first game that AJ Rayford played after also getting injured in week 1 against Batavia. So he's also kind of involved with that offense since that last matchup. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, how the game plays out. I'm sure this is also going to be a firefight between these two teams. Obviously it's going to be who's going to advance to the quarterfinals and whose season is going to end. So I fully expect this to be a little bit closer of a matchup than it was last time. So I'm excited to see how it all pans out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time I saw these teams face each other at Duchamp Field, it was Owen Lanzu's junior year, and they beat Glenbard West at Duchamp Field. It was the first time they had won there in like 20 years. It was a really big moment for them, but obviously a big test, but a very good game on Saturday afternoon down in North and Glenbard West. Game on Friday night that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Bishop McNamara going up to Elmhurst to face IHSA Catholic Prep. Couple of old Metro Suburban conference rivals. They used to play each other all the time in that league. They faced each other in the playoffs a few times. Both of them coming in very explosive teams. Bishop McNamara, that running game, they have so much speed on the outside. IHSA Catholic on the other side. Man, Grant Bowen, if you haven't seen him, kid's going to be a beast. I mean, he's a sophomore wide receiver, 6'4", Matt Bowen's kid. Already got offers from some Big Ten schools. He just looks huge. I mean, he looks bigger than 6'4" sometimes. Maybe it's because he was matched up against cornerback last Saturday that was a little small, but he just looked giant and really big kid. But man, I expect that game that to be one of those. All right, first to 80 or not first to 80, first to 40 type games. I expect a lot of offense in that game because IHSA Catholic Prep, they can really fill it up through the air, and then Bishop Mac, they can really do it on the ground with a lot of speed. But IHSA Catholic has really dominated that rivalry. They used to play like every year. They've won the last 7 meetings. Bishop McNamara, the last time they beat them was the 2015 state semifinals on the way to state championship. But man, should be a lot of fun between, kind of like old rivals that played each other a lot through the years. That's Friday night game in Elmhurst. Saturday night, big night in Rocket Hill, Burlington Central. Our Matt Rodewald, who also works for Burlington Central, he was nice enough to send out a media sheet. But man, what a big opportunity for Burlington Central with Harlem coming in. Burlington Central opportunity to get to the quarterfinals, I believe for the first time since 2006.
Yeah, I mean, that 2006 year was a really big year. And recently a lot of those first time sinces have been going down. I mean, last year it was first time making the playoffs since then, or first playoff win since 2006. Obviously knocked out of the way with the first round win, and it's moving to the quarterfinals for the first time since 2006. It's a really big opportunity for them, and especially considering the way they won their first round victory. Of course, getting that go ahead touchdown with, I believe, 1:06 left on the clock against Libertyville to get that win. Central's got to be riding a high right now. And especially considering they have a chance to make it to the quarterfinals for the first time since, I believe, a lot of these kids have been born, something along those lines. It's definitely got to be, we want to end that we want to end that streak right now. So I'm interested to see how the Rockets play up on Rocket Hill this week.
Yeah, I mean, their first round game was a dogfight. I mean, I think they scored late with about a minute or two left. Pull out that first round win. So not easy by any stretch against Libertyville, but yeah, I mean, a lot of excitement this weekend with Harlem coming in there. Burlington Central, they got that big win earlier in the year against Cary Grove, I believe, and they only lost to Prairie Ridge. They had a great year in the Fox Valley Conference. That program continues to build itself up in that league. And, now they want to take the next step, and winning Saturday night would be that.
For sure. And I mean, we talked about the defense for the Rockets pretty much all year, and that was a continued case in this game. I believe they held Libertyville to 17 points, which is more than they usually have been against, or when they were in the Fox Valley Conference. I believe they only let up more than 2 scores once, and it was that game against Prairie Ridge. So a little bit more than they're used to giving up, but defense was still extremely good in that game, and I fully expect it to be on display against Harlem this week.
Yeah. Speaking of Prairie Ridge, another kind of good matchup this weekend. Prairie Ridge going on the road to St. Francis. It's actually a rematch of last year's playoff game. The same two teams played each other. St. Francis came out on top 30-21 last year. Kind of noteworthy in that is last year, I know Prairie Ridge's really fine quarterback, Luke Vanderweel. He had been out for a while with the injury, I believe. He actually came back in that game. But St. Francis was able to come on top. Luke Vanderweel is healthy now, and he's had a great year for Prairie Ridge. And, really a tough test for St. Francis, and particularly St. Francis defense with Prairie Ridge coming in. But we'll see. I mean, they were able to do it last time, and this would be a big win for them as they want to get on that playoff run. What do you make about this one?
I mean, this year Prairie Ridge looks a whole lot different compared than they did last year. I believe they only had one game where they scored less than 30 points, which was, of course, that game against Burlington Central, against that really good defense that we just talked about. And it looks like that triple option that they're running with Luke Vanderweel there has just been explosive the entire way. Once they start finding the end zone, they just cannot stop. And it's going to be interesting to see if that St. Francis defense can get the stop. Obviously, they did last year against Prairie Ridge. We'll see if they can do it again.
Yeah, and I've said before on this podcast, I think with Stu, I mean, St. Francis is a really good team. They have very good receivers. They have a good running back. Their defense has had a few cracks in the year, throughout the year. I mean, I saw it against Kenwood, saw it against Isaac Catholic. Obviously, the Nazareth game, they gave a lot of points. Their defense is really going to have to step up and tighten up and slow down what appears to be, a very devastating running attack for Prairie Ridge. Any other matchups that kind of catch your eye before we get out of here?
Yeah, Friday night I'm going to be out at Glenbard East. I'm going to be covering that Glenbard East Batavia game. I fully expect that to be a very interesting game, especially considering how both of their first round wins kind of came in a similar fashion. I mean, they both came out kind of explosive on offense, but also on top of that, both of them had 5 turnovers on defense. So both sides have been pretty good. Both of them have quarterbacks that are named Michael. You obviously have Michael Vanderlukeren on Batavia. You've got Michael Nee, a very impressive athlete, both as a quarterback and also in basketball for Glenbard East. They have weapons that they can fully emphasize in the wide receiver room. I fully expect that to be an interesting game. It can be a dogfight, or it can be kind of a slow defensive matchup between these two teams. I fully expect it to be an interesting game and a very close game on top of that as well.
Yeah, a couple other games I'm keeping an eye on. Number one, Oswego is going on the road. They're playing at Lane, which I have taken a look online. Lane has got an impressive facility for football. But Lane is coming off their first playoff win in 21 years. Oswego now, they had a tough first round game against Naperville North, able to get the win. They're now looking to try to get to the quarterfinals for the first time since 2017. I think they have a pretty good opportunity to get that this week against Lane. And then the other matchup, Nazareth going to Wheaton Warrenville South. Nazareth has looked like they've looked like a runaway train the last, 7 or 8 or 9 weeks ever since that loss to Mount Carmel. Can Wheaton Warrenville South, who's got a pretty good defense, and they obviously have a great running back, Owen York, can they kind of control that with their running game and their defense, or as Nazareth continue to roll? Obviously, it's a huge test for Wheaton Warrenville South. They were able to get that really good win against St. Charles North, but then, they were maybe punching a bit of it above the weight when they played Batavia. So just curious to see, if Wheaton Warrenville South, how competitive they can be against Nazareth, who, like I said, they look fantastic right now. So, we'll see what happens there in Class 6A. A lot of good stuff coming up. A lot of good stuff this weekend. We're both going to be at games Friday and Saturday. I'm going to be up in Palatine to see that Lions team that we've been talking about. They're going to Frem this weekend. Friday night, it's a tough one. You're going to be at that Glenbard East Batavia game, and then of course at St. Charles North Carmel, and I'll be at Duchesne on Saturday afternoon. A lot of good stuff. I think we're going to get out of here. Again, for Joe Boenitz, this is Josh Welge. Everybody have a great week and a great second round.